Titan, the saga of the Mars Dynasty. In the secretive world of ultra-wealthy families, few rival the Mars clan for their deliberate obscurity and staggering success. Owners of Mars Incorporated, the private giant behind beloved brands like M&M's, Snickers, Milky Way, Twix, and a vast pet care empire including Pedigree, Whiskas, and Royal Canin. The Mars family commands a collective net worth of around $143 billion as of late 2025, per Bloomberg estimates, ranking them among the world's top richest families. Founded in 1911 by Frank C. Mars in a modest kitchen, the company has grown into a $55 billion-plus revenue behemoth, post-2025 Kellanova acquisition, employing over 150,000 people globally while remaining 100% family-owned. This dynasty's hallmark is privacy. No interviews, no public financials, a veil of mystery shielding generations from scrutiny. Yet, beneath the sweetness lies drama-bitter family exiles, ethical controversies in cocoa supply chains involving child labor allegations, workplace incidents, and subtle political influence through lobbying. Drawing from historical accounts, recent reports on the transformative Kellanova deal, completed December 2025, adding Pringles and Cheez-It, and ongoing sustainability pledges, this saga explores ambition's double edge, innovating delights for billions while navigating ethical storms, internal rifts, and quiet philanthropy. The Mars story is one of resilient secrecy, where mutuality of benefits masks the complexities of power concentrated in few hands. From kitchen dreams to candy empire, Frank Mars and the humble foundations of sweet ambition. Franklin Clarence Mars was born on September 24, 1883, in the small rural town of Hancock, Minnesota, during a time when America was still largely agrarian and opportunities for wealth were often tied to land or industry. As a young boy, Frank contracted polio, a disease that left him with limited mobility and prevented him from the physical labor that defined many childhoods of the era. Confined often to his home, he spent countless hours in the kitchen with his mother, Elva Mars, who taught him the delicate art of hand-dipping chocolates and making candies. What began as a way to pass the time became the seed of an unbreakable ambition. Frank dreamed not just of making sweets, but of building something lasting from them, a business that could lift his family out of modest circumstances. By his late teens, Frank was already experimenting with selling homemade candies door-to-door in Minneapolis, but early attempts were fraught with failure. He launched several small candy ventures in the early 1900s, only to face bankruptcy multiple times due to poor timing, lack of capital, and fierce competition in the nascent confectionery market. Undeterred, he married Ethel Kissack in 1902, and their son, Forrest Edward Mars Sr., was born in 1904. However, the marriage dissolved amid financial strains, and Frank remarried Ethel Veronica Healy, a woman who would become a steady partner in his early business efforts. In 1911, from the humble kitchen of their home in Tacoma, Washington, Frank and his second wife founded the Morrow Bar Company, handcrafting buttercream candies and selling them locally. The operation was tiny mixing bowls, stovetops, and manual dipping, but Frank's vision was grand. He focused on quality ingredients and innovative fillings, believing that better taste would win customers. Relocating back to Minneapolis in the 1920s, Frank incorporated as the Mars Candy Factory and began experimenting with nougat-based bars that could mimic the luxury of more expensive chocolates at a fraction of the cost. The breakthrough came in 1923 with the Milky Way bar, a malted nougat center topped with caramel and coated in milk chocolate. Priced affordably, it exploded in popularity during the Roaring '20s, when Americans craved indulgent yet accessible treats. Sales soared from a few $1,000s to millions annually, transforming Mars from a kitchen operation into a legitimate factory with hundreds of employees. Frank's marketing genius shone through. He emphasized volume and efficiency, using cheaper fillings like nougat to create the illusion of a larger, richer bar. Family dynamics added early drama. Young Forrest Sr., ambitious and headstrong, worked alongside his father but often clashed over strategy. Forrest pushing for bolder expansion, while Frank preferred cautious growth. Personal tragedies marked the era too. Frank's health issues from his childhood polio resurfaced, contributing to kidney problems that would claim his life prematurely. Philanthropy flickered in small ways, local donations to churches and community causes setting a pattern of quiet giving that the family would perfect later. Politically, Frank subtly lobbied for favorable sugar tariffs during shortages in the Great Depression era, protecting his supply chain. Controversies were minor but telling. Competitors accused Mars of aggressive pricing that undercut smaller makers, foreshadowing the cutthroat tactics that would define the company. By Frank's sudden death in 1934 at age 50 from heart and kidney failure, Mars Incorporated was valued at around $25 million, a fortune in Depression-era terms. Inheritance divided among second wife Ethel V., daughter Patricia, and son Forrest Sr., but underlying tensions promised future conflicts. Frank Mars's story is one of pure American bootstrap ambition, turning a childhood limitation into a lifelong passion and a kitchen hobby into an industry disruptor. His innovations laid the groundwork for iconic brands, proving that sweetness, when paired with relentless drive, could build enduring empires. Yet, the rifts with his son hinted at the personal costs of such ambition, costs that would echo through generations. The tyrant innovator, Forrest Mars Sr.'s exile, revolutionary inventions, and ruthless global expansion. Forrest Edward Mars Sr. was the embodiment of inherited ambition amplified to extremes. Born in 1904, he grew up immersed in the candy business, attending Yale but dropping out to join his father's company full-time. His ideas were bold, pushing for international growth and new products, but clashed violently with Frank's more conservative approach. In 1932, after a particularly heated argument, Frank effectively exiled Forrest, handing him $50,000 and the rights to sell Milky Way bars in Europe, essentially banishing him from the U.S. operation. This exile, painful as it was, became the catalyst for Forrest's greatest triumphs. Settling in Slough, England, he founded Mars Limited and quickly adapted products to local tastes. Facing accusations of industrial espionage from former supplier Hershey, Forrest severed ties and built independent supply chains, a move that showcased his ruthless independence. In 1933, he launched the Mars Bar, a malt nougat treat that became a British staple. But Forrest's true genius emerged with M&Ms. Observing Spanish Civil War soldiers eating chocolate pellets coated in sugar to prevent melting, he developed a hard candy shell around milk chocolate pieces. Patented in 1941, M&Ms launched just as World War II escalated, becoming a standard U.S. military ration because they melt in your mouth, not in your hand. Post-war, colorful advertising with cartoon characters turned them into a cultural icon, sales rocketing into billions of pieces annually. Personal life was turbulent. Marriage to Audrey Ruth Meyer produced 3 children: Forrest Jr., 1931, John, 1935, and Jacqueline, 1939, but Forrest's demanding nature strained relationships. Known as a tyrant in the office, he enforced grueling hours, spied on employees, and fired underperformers without mercy, fostering a culture of fear but also unparalleled efficiency. Back in America after Frank's 1934 death, Forrest battled his stepmother for control, eventually buying out shares to dominate. He renamed Snickers, 1930, after a favorite horse, globally and diversified dramatically, acquiring the Chappie dog food brand in 1935, renaming it Pedigree, marking entry into pet nutrition. Family drama peaked in 1973 when Forrest, echoing his own exile, fired sons Forrest Jr. and John amid disputes over company direction, sending them to manage European operations. This created lasting rifts, though the brothers later reconciled professionally. Philanthropy remained anonymous, political influence subtle through trade lobbying. Forrest retired in 1973 but stayed active until his 1999 death at 95, leaving each child billions. His legacy is paradoxical. A brilliant innovator who built a global empire through sheer will, but whose ruthlessness scarred personal relationships. Exile forged M&Ms and Snickers into legends, proving ambition's fire could sweeten the world even if it burned those closest. Sibling stewardship, the third generation's internal battles, reconciliation, and unified leadership over decades. The third generation of the Mars family, Forrest A. Mars Jr., John Franklin Mars, and Jacqueline Mars stepped into leadership under the long shadow of their father, Forrest Sr., whose authoritarian style had left deep emotional scars. The 1973 firing and exile of Forrest Jr. and John to manage European operations was a traumatic echo of Forrest Sr.'s own 1932 banishment by his father Frank. For years, the brothers operated at a distance from the U.S. headquarters in McLean, Virginia, honing their skills in international markets while nursing resentment toward their father's micromanaging and explosive temper. Jacqueline, the youngest, born in 1939, initially stayed out of day-to-day operations, pursuing equestrian interests and marrying Frank Vogel. But she would later join the board in 1982, bringing a quieter, more conciliatory influence. The 1980s marked a turning point as Forrest Sr.'s retirement created a power vacuum. The siblings gradually returned to central roles, assuming a unique co-leadership structure. Forrest Jr. focused on long-term strategy and acquisitions, John on operational excellence and supply chain efficiency, and Jacqueline on governance and family harmony. This tripartite arrangement was not without friction. Reports from rare insider accounts describe intense boardroom debates in the 1990s, where Forrest Jr.'s aggressive expansion ideas clashed with John's more cautious, cost-focused approach. Rumors of proxy battles and threatened lawsuits over shared distributions circulated in business circles, though the family's ironclad privacy prevented any public scandal. These tensions were exacerbated by the lingering effects of their father's exile tactic. Forrest Jr. and John reportedly communicated more through memos than direct conversation in early years. Despite the drama, the siblings achieved remarkable unity through shared commitment to the 5 principles their father had codified: quality, responsibility, mutuality, efficiency, and freedom. These became the company's guiding philosophy, fostering a corporate culture that prioritized long-term sustainability over short-term gains. Major successes defined their era. The 1986 acquisition of Dove International brought premium chocolate and ice cream lines, elevating Mars beyond mass-market bars. Pet care exploded with global rollouts of Whiskas and Sheba, while candy innovations like combos and celebrations targeted new demographics. Jacqueline's role grew crucial in bridging divides. After divorcing in the 1990s, she devoted more time to the company, serving on the board and advocating for employee welfare programs that softened the harsh culture inherited from their father. Philanthropy scaled dramatically under their watch. The Mars Foundation and individual family trusts donated hundreds of millions to education, scientific research, particularly through the Mars Global Food Safety Center, and conservation efforts. Political influence remained characteristically subtle, modest bipartisan donations, and lobbying for favorable agricultural and trade policies, especially around cocoa and sugar imports. The siblings avoided the spotlight that plagued public companies, maintaining the private ownership that allowed bold, decades-long decisions without quarterly pressure. Forrest Jr.'s death in 2016 from a heart attack at age 84 shifted dynamics further, leaving John, still active into his late 80s, and Jacqueline as primary stewards. Their leadership grew annual revenue from $10 billion in the 1980s to over $40 billion by the 2020s, proving that sibling stewardship, forged in early battles and tempered by reconciliation, could sustain a dynasty. The internal conflicts ultimately strengthened resolve, creating a leadership model that balanced ambition with stability in an increasingly competitive global market. Pause and profits, building the world's largest pet care empire alongside candy dominance. What began as a minor diversification in 1935 with the acquisition of the British dog food brand Chappie, renamed Pedigree, evolved into one of the most profitable pillars of the Mars empire, rivaling and often surpassing the candy segment in growth and margins. The pet care division's explosive expansion in the late 20th and early 21st centuries reflected the family's strategic ambition to create multiple revenue streams immune to chocolate market volatility. Under the third generation's leadership, pet care became a focused priority. The 1968 acquisition of Cal solidified U.S. presence, while the 1980s saw aggressive international rollouts of Whiskas cat food and Shiba premium lines. The game changer came in 2001 with the €1.5 billion purchase of Royal Canin, a French veterinary nutrition brand that positioned Mars at the high end of the market with science-backed formulas. This was followed by Nutro Natural Foods and the massive 2017 acquisition of VCA Incorporated, America's largest chain of animal hospitals, for $9.10 billion, bringing veterinary services under the Mars umbrella. Drama accompanied growth. The 1990s and 2000s saw intense criticism over animal testing for pet food development, prompting consumer boycotts and forcing Mars to pledge significant reductions in testing while investing in alternatives. Workplace safety incidents in factories occasionally surfaced, though quickly contained by the company's privacy apparatus. Supply chain issues in pet ingredients mirrored cocoa controversies, with occasional reports of quality lapses. Innovation drove dominance. The Waltham Pet Care Science Institute, founded in 1965, became a world-leading research center, publishing studies that influenced global pet nutrition standards. Brands like Caesar, Eames, acquired briefly then divested, and Greenies expanded the portfolio, while Banfield and Anikara clinics created a vertically integrated ecosystem from food to healthcare. Internal competition for capital between candy and pet divisions created tensions. Pet care's higher margins often one priority, frustrating traditionalists focused on M&Ms and Snickers. Yet, the mutuality principle ensured balance. Philanthropy extended to pets. The Mars Pet Care Foundation and Waltham supported animal shelters and welfare programs worldwide. Political lobbying shaped regulations around pet food safety and veterinary practices. By late 2025, post-Kellanova acquisition synergies promise further integration snacks for humans alongside premium pet treats. Pet care now generates nearly half of Mars' $55 billion plus revenue, employing tens of thousands and serving millions of companion animals. The division showcases the family's foresight and diversification, turning a side venture into a global leader that embodies their slogan, "A better world for pets," while delivering superior profits amid ethical and competitive challenges. The Iron Veil: how the Mars family cultivates absolute secrecy in an era of relentless transparency and public scrutiny. The Mars family's commitment to privacy is not merely a preference, it is a deeply ingrained survival strategy, an iron veil that has shielded their $143 billion fortune and 100% privately owned company from the prying eyes of media, investors, regulators, and even competitors for over a century. This deliberate obscurity traces its roots to Forrest Mars Sr.'s profound paranoia about industrial espionage and personal exposure, a mindset forged during his 1932 exile and reinforced by his experiences with ruthless competition from giants like Hershey and Nestle. Forrest Sr. instilled in his children a belief that publicity invites vulnerability. Leaks of formulas, financial weaknesses, or family disputes could destroy what generations built. This philosophy evolved into corporate doctrine, where secrecy became as vital as the 5 principles of quality, responsibility, mutuality, efficiency, and freedom. In practice, the veil manifests in extraordinary measures. Mars Incorporated has never gone public, avoiding the mandatory financial disclosures, quarterly earnings calls, and shareholder activism that plague rivals. Employees, from factory workers to executives, signed strict non-disclosure agreements that extend lifelong, with severe penalties for breaches. Family members themselves live in near anonymity. Jacqueline Mars in her vast Virginia equestrian estates, Victoria Mars involved in quiet board roles, Pamela and Valerie in low-profile philanthropic circles. Social media is shunned. Public appearances are rare and controlled. Even major milestones, like the historic December 2025 completion of the $36 billion Kellanova acquisition, the largest in company history, are announced with minimal fanfare, no press conferences, and sparse details, leaving analysts scrambling for insights. Drama occasionally tests the veil's strength. Rare cracks appear through lawsuits or accidents. The 2013 tragic car incident involving Jacqueline, where her vehicle struck another, killing a driver, brought brief tabloid attention before being settled privately. Offshore trust revelations and leaks like the Pandora Papers offered glimpses into wealth structuring, fueling speculation about tax strategies without concrete proof. Workplace complaints or supplier disputes sometimes surface in court filings, only to vanish through settlements. The family's response is always swift containment: legal teams, NDAs, and silence. Internally, governance balances secrecy with professionalism. While family members hold ultimate control through board seats and ownership, day-to-day operations have been delegated to non-family CEOs since the 2000s. Grant F. Reed, 2014 to 2022, and current leader Paul Weyrauch, appointed in 2022. These executives manage global complexity while adhering to family directives, allowing heirs to remain shadows. Succession planning is equally opaque: no public announcements of next-generation roles, preserving flexibility. Philanthropy reinforces the veil. Donations flow through foundations like the Mars Family Foundation or corporate programs, often anonymously or with minimal attribution, supporting causes from scientific research to animal welfare without seeking credit. Politically, contributions are channeled indirectly through trade associations, avoiding direct donor lists. In an age where billionaires like Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos court publicity, the Mars approach stands apart. Secrecy enables bold, long-term decisions unhindered by market reactions. The 2025 Kellanova deal, adding iconic snacks like Pringles and expanding revenue beyond $55 billion, exemplifies this advantage, executed without shareholder votes or leaks that could spike costs. Yet, the veil faces modern pressures. Growing demands for supply chain transparency on ethical issues, activist investors in related industries, and digital leaks. As of late 2025, it holds firm, perpetuating mystique and power. The Iron Veil not only protects wealth, but defines the Mars identity, one of the last great private dynasties thriving in a transparent world. The bitter truth: persistent supply chain scandals, child labor allegations, and the company's slow ethical reckoning. Behind the colorful packaging and joyful advertising of M&Ms and Snickers lies a persistently bitter reality. The Mars supply chain, particularly for cocoa, has been plagued by allegations of child labor, hazardous working conditions, and environmental degradation for decades. West Africa Ivory Coast and Ghana supplies over 70% of global cocoa, and investigations repeatedly link farms in these regions to Mars suppliers with children as young as 10 performing dangerous tasks like machete work, pesticide exposure, and heavy carrying, often missing school. The issue gained global attention with the 2001 Harkin-Engel Protocol, where major chocolate companies, including Mars, pledged to eliminate worst forms of child labor by 2005, a deadline missed repeatedly, extended to 2008, 2010, and beyond. A 2020 NORC report, funded partly by industry, found millions of children still involved. 2023 CBS investigations and 2025 follow-ups revealed little substantive change on many farms, despite Mars' claims of progress. Critics accused delay tactics, pointing to incomplete traceability. Mars' 2018 Cocoa for Generations program promised $1 billion investment, but achieved only partial farm mapping by 2025. Drama escalates with legal and consumer pressure. U.S. lawsuits allege misleading, sustainable labeling, threaten boycotts from activists target iconic brands. Workplace tragedies add layers. A 2023 Pennsylvania factory incident where 2 workers drowned in a chocolate tank highlighted safety lapses, prompting OSHA fines and scrutiny. Environmental concerns, deforestation for cocoa plantations, palm oil sourcing compound criticism despite net zero pledges. Internal responses show tension between ambition and ethics. Mars invests in farmer livelihood programs, community schools, and agroforestry, but reports suggest funds reach only fractions of suppliers. Family oversight emphasizes reform, yet profit priorities slow-pace. Cocoa costs must remain low to maintain margins on $2 candy bars. Philanthropy attempts counterbalance. Foundations fund education in cocoa regions. Political lobbying resists mandatory due diligence laws in Europe and US, favoring voluntary standards. As of late 2025, post-Kellanova expansion increases scrutiny on broader snack ingredients. The bitter truth forces ongoing reckoning. Ambition built sweetness for billions, but at human and environmental cost. Mars' slow progress risks reputation in conscious consumer era, challenging the dynasty to align principles with practice. Silent generosity, the extensive, deliberately low-profile philanthropic legacy of the Mars family across generations. The Mars family's approach to philanthropy is as distinctive as their business empire, vast in scale, deeply impactful, yet conducted with an almost monastic commitment to anonymity and low visibility. This silent generosity stands in stark contrast to the high-profile giving of contemporaries like Bill Gates or Warren Buffett, who leverage their donations for public influence and policy advocacy. For the Marses, giving is a private duty aligned with their mutuality, principal benefits shared across stakeholders without seeking recognition or credit. Estimates suggest the family and company have donated billions cumulatively since the mid-20th century, channeled through a network of foundations, trusts, and corporate programs that reflect personal passions, business expertise, and a desire to address root causes rather than symptoms. The origins trace to modest local contributions under Frank Mars and Forrest Sr., but philanthropy scaled dramatically under the third generation. Forrest Jr., John, and Jacqueline established key vehicles like the Mars Foundation, which supports education, scientific research, and community development. Individual family trusts operate even more discreetly, allowing personalized giving without public attribution. Corporate initiatives through Mars Wrigley and Mars Pet Care amplify impact, with employee volunteer programs like the Mars Ambassador Program engaging thousands globally in hands-on projects. Focus areas reveal family fingerprints. Scientific research receives major funding. The Mars Global Food Safety Center in China advances standards for the industry. Partnerships with universities support nutrition and agriculture studies. Animal welfare is a passion point. The Waltham Petcare Science Institute, founded in 1965, has published thousands of papers influencing veterinary medicine worldwide, while foundations aid shelters and spay/neuter programs. Conservation efforts include rainforest protection tied to cocoa sustainability and arts support through quiet endowments to museums like the Smithsonian. Education initiatives target underserved communities, scholarships, school buildings in cocoa-growing regions, and STEM programs. Health projects range from oral care in developing countries to disaster relief contributions that arrive without fanfare. Drama emerges from external perceptions. Critics, especially amid supply chain scandals, argue that philanthropy serves as image management, a way to offset criticism over child labor or environmental impacts without fundamental business changes. Some view large donations to elite institutions as perpetuating privilege rather than systemic reform. Yet, defenders note the family's consistency. Giving predates modern ESG pressures and avoids controversial political causes. Internal direction remains tightly family-controlled. Fourth-generation members like Victoria Mars, former board chair, and Pamela Mars-Wright oversee major foundations, making decisions personally but revealing little. This hands-on approach ensures alignment with values but limits transparency. Even annual reports are minimal. Political intersections are carefully avoided. Donations steer clear of partisan fights, focusing on non-controversial science and welfare. In late 2025, amid the Kellanova integration expanding snack lines, philanthropic commitments continue undiminished. Renewed sustainability projects in cocoa communities, expanded pet health research, and quiet support for global food security initiatives. Silent generosity ultimately redeems the vast wealth accumulated through candy and pet empires, creating tangible good while preserving the family's cherished privacy. It reflects a philosophy that true mutuality requires no applause. Impact speaks for itself in a world increasingly demanding visibility from the ultra-wealthy. Hidden hands. The subtle, calculated political influence and extensive lobbying efforts of the Mars Dynasty. While the Mars family and company shun the public political stage with the same fervor as media exposure, they wield considerable hidden hands, influence through sophisticated, low-visibility lobbying on issues directly impacting their global operations. This subtle approach, avoiding direct candidate endorsements or large personal donations, allows Mars to shape policy favorably without attracting scrutiny that could pierce their privacy veil or invite backlash against iconic brands. Lobbying focuses on core business interests, trade policies affecting cocoa, sugar, and palm oil imports, agricultural subsidies, food safety and labeling regulations, tax structures benefiting private companies, and pet food/veterinary standards. Mars channels efforts primarily through industry trade associations like the National Confectioners Association, Chocolate and Cocoa Association of America, Pet Food Institute, and Grocery Manufacturers Association, now Consumer Brands Association. These groups aggregate industry voices, masking individual company fingerprints while amplifying impact. Historical drama highlights effectiveness. In the 2000s to 2010s, Mars lobbied intensely against estate tax strengthening that could complicate intergenerational wealth transfer for family-owned enterprises, a quiet victory when reforms stalled. Sugar quota programs protecting domestic pricing received strong support, as did resistance to tariffs disrupting cocoa flows. More recently, opposition to mandatory human rights due diligence laws in Europe and proposed U.S. legislation on child labor reporting reflects defensive positioning amid supply chain criticisms. Internal coordination is meticulous. A dedicated government affairs team in Washington, D.C. and Brussels works with external lobbyists, spending millions annually, exact figures opaque due to privacy. Corporate PACs make modest bipartisan contributions spread evenly to avoid partisanship totaling low seven figures in recent cycles. 2024 to 2025 efforts intensified around trade deals post-Kellanova acquisition, ensuring favorable terms for imported ingredients in new snack lines like Pringles. Regulatory battles over nutrition labeling, GMO disclosures, and plastic packaging taxes saw Mars advocating voluntary standards over mandates. Drama arises indirectly. Alignment with industry groups sometimes ties Mars to controversial stances, like opposing stricter sugar taxes or labor transparency. Critics accuse dark money influence through associations, though Mars denies dominance. The hidden hand strategy safeguards the private empire, influencing outcomes without personal exposure, preserving brand wholesomeness. In a polarized political landscape of late 2025, this subtlety remains a competitive advantage for one of the last great family dynasties. Fourth generation rising. The challenges, dynamics, and strategic navigation of leadership transition in a rapidly evolving global business landscape. The transition to the fourth generation of the Mars family represents one of the most delicate and pivotal phases in the dynasty's history, as Victoria B. Mars, Pamela Mars Wright, Valerie Mars, and Marique Mars, daughters of the third-generation siblings, gradually assume greater responsibility for steering a $55 billion plus global empire reshaped by the transformative 2025 Kellanova acquisition. Born in the 1950s and 1960s, these women grew up in the shadow of their parents' leadership, immersed in the company's 5 principles from an early age, but also shielded by the iron veil of privacy that defines the Mars identity. Their upbringing was marked by privilege tempered by discipline, no public displays of wealth, emphasis on education and hard work, and early exposure to board meetings and family discussions about business strategy. Victoria Mars, the eldest and most publicly active, relatively speaking, served as chairman of the board until stepping back in recent years, overseeing critical periods of international expansion and the initial push towards sustainability initiatives. Her focus on global markets helped solidify Mars' presence in emerging economies, where pet care and confectionery demand surged. Pamela Mars Wright has concentrated on internal culture and community engagement, championing employee welfare programs and the Mars Ambassador volunteer initiative that sends associates worldwide for hands-on projects. Valerie Mars, with a passion for the arts and culture, has directed philanthropic efforts toward museums and educational endowments, while Marique Mars maintains the lowest profile, contributing quietly to governance and family office matters. The drama inherent in this transition lies in balancing deeply ingrained traditions with unprecedented modern challenges. The fourth generation inherited a company thriving on secrecy and long-term thinking, but now operates in an era demanding greater transparency on ethical issues like supply chain labor practices and environmental impact. The December 2025 Kellanova deal, adding household name snacks and significantly expanding the portfolio, introduced new complexities. Integrating a former public company's culture, managing increased regulatory scrutiny on antitrust grounds, and harmonizing diverse supply chains for ingredients beyond cocoa. Internal debates reportedly centered on investment allocation, whether to prioritize pet care's high margins, candy innovation, or new snack synergies, testing the sisters' ability to maintain consensus in a family historically scarred by exiles and rifts. Succession planning for the fifth generation adds another layer of intrigue. Grandchildren now in their 20s to 40s are being groomed through advisory roles, foundation work, and gradual board exposure, but no public timelines or announcements exist, preserving flexibility while avoiding external pressure. Questions linger. Will the next heirs uphold absolute privacy in a digital age where leaks and social media expose everything? Can they navigate intensifying activist demands for corporate accountability without compromising the private ownership that enables bold moves? Personal dynamics among the sisters appear collaborative, a deliberate contrast to past generational conflicts, fostered by shared experiences and the mutuality principle. Yet, individual passions, equestrian pursuits, arts patronage, community focus influence involvement levels, creating subtle imbalances in decision-making influence. Political and philanthropic evolution under their watch shows adaptation. Lobbying remains subtle, but more proactive on sustainability regulations, while giving expands into climate and health initiatives tied to business risks. In late 2025, as Kellanova integration progresses, the fourth generation's steady hand proves crucial, bridging legacy with innovation, ensuring the dynasty's core identity endures amid transformation. Their rising leadership not only secures continuity, but positions Mars for sustained dominance in an unpredictable global landscape. Sweet Horizons. The Mars Empire's dramatic transformation in late 2025 and long-term prospects in an increasingly complex and competitive world. As December 2025 unfolds, the Mars Empire emerges from its most ambitious transformation yet. The completed $36 billion acquisition of Kellanova, finalized earlier in the month, instantly catapulting annual revenue beyond $55 billion and redefining the company as a comprehensive global snacking powerhouse. This landmark deal, Mars' largest ever, integrates iconic brands like Pringles, Cheez-It, Pop-Tarts, Eggo waffles, and RXBR protein bars into the portfolio, complementing century-old confectionery staples, M&M's, Snickers, Twix, and the dominant pet care division, Pedigree, Royal Canin, VCA Clinics. The move diversifies beyond chocolate's seasonal volatility, tapping into savory, breakfast, and health-focused categories while leveraging Mars' distribution strength for immediate synergies projected in the billions. The transformation carries immediate drama and challenges. Cultural integration between Mars' secretive, principle-driven private culture and Kellanova's more open public company background sparks internal adjustments, employee retention concerns, system harmonizations, and strategic realignments dominate executive agendas. Regulatory hurdles linger from antitrust reviews across jurisdictions, while expanded supply chains introduce new ethical vulnerabilities. Palm oil in Pringles, grain sourcing for Eggo, amplifying existing cocoa scrutiny. Consumer activists watch closely, demanding proof of sustainability across the broader portfolio. Internal priorities reflect strategic foresight. Sustainability accelerates with renewed cocoa for generations commitments and net zero roadmap updates, addressing climate risks to key ingredients. Innovation invests in healthier formulations, reduced sugar treats, plant-based options, functional snacks, responding to obesity trends and wellness demands. Digital and e-commerce capabilities expand rapidly, with AI-driven personalization for marketing and supply optimization. Pet care, already a growth engine, benefits from cross-promotions with new human snacks. Political navigation grows more intricate in a fragmented world. Lobbying intensifies on trade agreements affecting imported goods post-acquisition, resistance to sugar taxes or nutrition mandates, and subtle advocacy for private company tax benefits. Philanthropy scales accordingly, quiet expansions into food security, health research, and community programs tied to new markets. Long-term horizons blend extraordinary promise with substantial perils. Demographic tailwinds favor premium pet products and convenient snacks in aging populations and urbanizing emerging markets. Asia, Africa projected high growth. Technological advances AI manufacturing, biotechnology for sustainable ingredients offer competitive edges unavailable to slower public rivals. The family's private status enables patient capital for decade-long bets, like further diversification or vertical integration. Yet risks abound. Intensifying ethical and regulatory pressures could force unwanted transparency. Climate change threatens cocoa and grain yields. Fierce competition from public giants, Nestle, Mondelez, PepsiCo, with easier capital access. Generational shifts in consumer preferences toward ultra-healthy or experiential alternatives. Succession uncertainties for the fifth generation loom in a digital era where privacy is harder to maintain. In late 2025, Mars remains uniquely positioned the world's most secretive major food company, family-controlled after over a century, delivering delights and companion care to billions while quietly adapting. Sweet horizons extend far if the dynasty's hallmark resilience forged through exiles, scandals, and transformations continues to balance tradition with bold evolution. The empire's future promises enduring influence in an increasingly complex, competitive, and conscious global landscape.